Good day! The topic that we're going to tackle is all about understanding industrial organizational buying behavior. For the introduction and nature of industrial organizational buying behavior will be discussed by yours truly, Generos P. Bahala, for the different types of organizational consumers and their roles and responsibility of buying centers. It will be discussed by Joanne C. Espiel for the organizational buying centers, motives, and the buying situation. It will be discussed by Jacqueline Benriquez. And for the organizational buyer's decision process and the influences on buying decision, it will be discussed by Gian Paulo de la Cruz. So now let us define what is industrial organizational buying behavior. When we say organizational buying or institutional buying or business to business buying, it is defined as a process by which a company or organization establishes a need for purchasing products, collects information, and evaluates product and services among competing brands and suppliers to take a final purchase decision. So now let's evaluate the difference between consumer products and organization products. In organization products, these are the products that are used in the operation of a business organization, or these are the products that are used to manufacture other products. But when we say consumer products, these are the products that are used for personal or household use. But why organizations buy products? So organizations buy products and services for their corporate use and also use them in their production process to build the final product or service for end consumers. For example, rather than manufacturing the parts themselves, computer manufacturers often buy hard drives, motherboards, cases, monitors, keyboards, and other components from manufacturers and put them together to create a finished product. Organizational buying is also called institutional buying, and when the products are used in their own production process, the buying process is called industrial buying. Organizational buying in few ways similar to individual consumer buying because it is not the organization making the buying decision, but people at different levels of organization are involved in the buying process. Often, many people are involved in making decisions as to whether to buy, what to buy, at what quantity, and from whom. For example, an engineer may make specification as to what is needed, which may be approved by a manager, with the final purchase being made by a purchase specialist who spends all his or her time finding the best deal on goods that the organization needs. Let us now move on to the nature of organizational buying behavior. Direct demand. Organizational buyers purchase a larger volume of products and services than individual consumers as their demand is influenced by the final consumer demand. Goods that yield direct satisfaction to the consumers are said to have a direct demand. In direct demand, these are the demands comes from the consumer sides. Derived demand. The demand for industrial products is called derived demand. These are multiple transactions involved in buying process between the organizational buyer and set of suppliers. Buying in an organization is a complex process as it involves many people. The buying agents collect purchase data, market prices, and delivery schedules followed by different players and supply them to the purchase department. Organizations have a purchase department which receive demands from different departments and processes this information for making purchases and procuring products and services for different departments. So on the other hand, buyers have to take care of the corporate interest of cost control, smooth flow of products and services for feeding the production schedules. On the other, address the varied demands of different departments. In many instances, the final price is arrived at through a series of negotiations involving a series of people working in diverse departments. These are the functions and responsibilities of purchase departments. First, procurement of stores through indigenous and foreign sources as required in accordance with the rules in force. Second, checking of requisitions purchase indents. Third, selection of suppliers for issue of inquiries. Fourth, issuing inquiries, tenders, and obtaining quotations. Fifth, analyzing quotation and bids, etc., and preparation of comparative statement or quotation charts. Consultation with the indentor for selection and approval of quotation with accounts officers of pre-negotiating contracts. Checking legal condition of contracts, consulting administrative officer or secretary and CSM where necessary. Issue of purchase orders. Follow-up of purchase orders for delivery in due time. Verification and passing of supplier bills to see that payments are made promptly. Correspondence and dealing with suppliers, carriers, etc. regarding shortages, rejections reported by the store's departments. Maintenance of purchase records. Maintenance of progressive expenditure statements, subhead-wise. Maintenance of vendor performance records or data. Arrangements for insurance surveys and when necessary. Clearance of foreign consignments. Keeping various departments division informed of the progress of their indents in case of delay in obtaining supplies. Serving as an information center of the materials knowledge, their prices, source of supply, specification, and other allied matters. Development of reliable and alternate sources of supply.
Good day everyone, I am Joanne Espiel and my topic is about the different types of organizational consumers and the roles and responsibility of the buying centuries. So let's discuss first types of consumers. Organizational consumers buy goods and services for further production, use in operations, and to resell to others. They buy installations, raw materials, and semi-finished materials. Organizational consumers may be classified by area of specialization, size and location, and goods and services to purchase. These consumers have general buying goals such as a product availability, seller reliability, consistent quality, prompt delivery, good prices, and superior customer service. So sino-sino nga ba ang mga organizational consumers? Basically, they are the manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, government, and non-profit institutions. For further explanation of these organizational consumers, the first organizational consumers is the manufacturers. Manufacturers produce product for resale to other consumers. For example of this, if you are a bake shop owner, in order to produce your product, you have to buy raw materials for you to produce that product and resell to other consumers. Next is the wholesalers. Wholesalers buy or handle merchandise and its subsequent resale to organizational users, retailers, and other wholesalers. They do not sell significant volume to final consumers. Si wholesalers ay ang merchant middleman who sells chiefly to retailers or organizational users. Bago makarating sa final consumers ang isang product, the wholesalers sells the volume product to the retailers. Kumbaga, bultuhan ang pagbebenta nito doon sa mga retailers and other organizational users. Next is the retailers. Retailers buy or handle goods and services for resale to the final or ultimate consumers. For example, is the retail store or sari-sari store. They sell goods for the final consumers. Retailers buy goods to the wholesalers to resell the product to its final consumers. Next is the government consumers. Government consumes goods and services in performing its duties and responsibilities. Governmental consumers purchase food, military equipment, office buildings, subway cars, office supplies, clothing, and vehicles. The government also consumes goods and services para tugunan ang mga pangangailangan ng kanyang nasasakapan lalo na sa mga mamamayan. For example, the Armed Forces of the Philippines needs military equipment to perform their duties. Likewise also to the teachers. The government purchase products and services for the use of teachers in their teaching area. And the last one is the non-profit institutions. So, non-profit institutions act in the public interest or to foster a cause and do not seek financial profits. They purchase goods and services in order to run their organizations and also buy items for resale to generate additional revenue to offset costs. Non-profit institutions are the charity or the foundations. Kaya tinatawag na non-profit institutions kasi they have no business at all. Kumbaga, they ask some help to the public to foster for a cause for the people in need for their help. Pero isa pa itong organizational but it is not related to a business function. The next topic naman is the roles and responsibility of buying centers. This session we will discuss about what is buying centers and their responsibility to the organization. What do you mean by these organizational centers? We all know that in any organization, purchase decisions are basically a joint decision. All individuals participating in this decision-making are called decision-making units or the buying centers. These decision-making units in any firm or organizations are very important because they are people who decide upon the buying behavior of the particular firm. These individuals have a common goals which has been preset by the objectives of the company and share the risk that arise out taking a decision. Now, having a talk about this decision making. So, what are the roles of the buying centers and the organizations? How to take a decision? So, there are 7 different roles that decision-making used in an organization. The first one is the initiators. Initiators are the people who request for something to be purchased. They may be users or others in the organizations. So the initiators are the players who recognize that there is a need to be satisfied or a problem to be solved. This might come from a drive for efficiency due to the fact that some equipment will need replacing. There could be many reasons which stimulate the initiation. So, for example, in the bake shop, the initiator is the baker. So, kung mayroong kulang sa bake shop like the raw materials need to purchase para makagawa ng tinapay or cake, siya ang nagre-request ng mga need na mga kagamitan or ingredients sa pagbe-bake. Next one is the users. So, they use the product initiating the purchase process. Example na rin ulit natin dito si baker. So, besides sa initiator siya, he also the user of that product or the raw materials to produce his or her product to resell to the final consumers. Next is the influencers. So influencers, individuals in the organizations influence the decision-making process by providing information on criteria for buying. Influencers are the opinion leader. They may be a specialist who make recommendations based upon experience and their knowledge of products and services. Examples of influencers are the consultants employed by business to help deciders make a final decisions, or the another example might be lawyers employed to offer legal advice. There are also informal influences such as family and friends and people that you meet at trade associations or informal gatherings. Next is the deciders. Organizational members with decision-making power who decide about the purchase. Deciders in a large organization certainly are responsible for making a final deal or decision. Their role carries the responsibility of placing the final order. The deciders actually takes decision to buy to purchase a product. He is mostly aided by the users and the influencers to take the decisions. Users and influencers both the technical and economical factors, whereas senior managers or agents are the examples of the deciders acting on behalf of an organization in the market. The deciders will review information provided from lower down the buyer decision process from the buyers, gatekeepers, and the original initiators. Next one is the gatekeepers. So people in the organization who have the power to prevent sellers or information from reaching the members of buying centers. So gatekeepers are basically responsible for a flow of information in an organization. They are typically the first people you encounter when you call or visit an office. Example of gatekeepers are the secretary, receptionist, purchasing agents, or the telephone operators. Next is the approvers. People in the organization who authorize the proposed actions of deciders or buyers. So si approvers ang pinaka-final na nagko-confirm kung ang proposed action ni buyers and deciders ay dapat bang tanggapin. Mahalaga si approvers sa isang organization upang maiwasan ang mga error na maaaring balakid sa pag-purchase ng isang product. The last one is the buyers. They are people who have formal authority to select the suppliers and arrange the purchase terms. They play very important role in selecting vendors and negotiating, and sometimes help to shape the product specifications. The major roles or responsibilities of buyers are obtaining proposals or quotes, evaluating them and selecting the suppliers, negotiating the terms and conditions, issuing of purchase orders, follow-up, and keeping track of deliveries. So, those are the people and their roles and responsibility in purchasing products for the organizations. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you understand the roles and the responsibility in decision-making unit in organization. The next reporter, Ms. Jacqueline Banlaygas, will discuss to you the organizational buyers' buying motives and the buying situations.
Hi guys, my name is Jacqueline, and now I will discuss about organizational buyers' buying motives and the buying situation. Organizational buyers' buying situation. The business buyers has to take many decisions while making a purchase decision. So, the number of decision depend on different buying situation. So, sa organizational buyers, dito po papasok yung iba't ibang motivation natin to buy a product and service. Buying motives is to satisfy a desire or needs that makes people to buy a product or service. So, every purchase, there is a buying motives. There are three types of consumer. First is manufacturers who purchase goods for turning them into finished goods. Second is manufacturers and service organizations, which buy goods for consumption in the operation of their business. Third is organizational distributors, who buy resale to organizational consumer. There are three types of buying situation are popular among business buyers. The first is straight rebuy. This type of situation is found when there is repetitive or routine order processing which is given by the buyers to long-term suppliers. So dito sa straight rebuy, the suppliers make an effort to maintain product or service or good quality to repeat order the buyer and the suppliers. The second is modify rebuy. This situation occurs when buyers want to modify any purchase. An example of modify rebuy is an automobile company. Dahil mas prepare nila yung mga updated version of bearing. So, naghahanap sila ng mga suppliers or mas maraming suppliers na naglalabas o nagkakaroon ng bagong version ng bearings para mapili nila kung ano yung best version of bearings. The third type of buying situation is new buy. This is a situation when a new buyer purchases for the first time. The customer receives a higher risk if the product or service is one of the highest value and demand more technically understanding.
So hello guys, my name is Guillermo Paulo de la Cruz. So I'm the last reporter of my group. So my topic is about organizational buyer decision process. So here in this topic, it talks about the process, factors that the company, business, or buyer consider when they're buying a product. Hindi lang sila basta bumibili ng mga product o services. Meron silang mga kino-consider para hindi masayang yung pera nila at mapunta sa wala. So, the number one in our organizational buyer decision process, recognizing an organizational need. So, organizational purchasing starts by identification of product or services that demand in the market. Ito yung mga product at services na demand sa market. Ito yung mga una nilang ina-identify kasi mas dito sila kikita. Pero meron din namang mga other needs na binibili nila kaso kasi hindi yun pasok sa business operation nila. No? Kumbaga hindi yun yung main na product or services na binibenta nila sa mga tao. Kasi hindi naman sila masyadong kikita pero at least may mga bibili pa din or may mag-a-avail ng mga product or services na binibenta nila. So mas prioritize nga lang nila yung demand talaga sa market kasi mas din sila kikita. No, so yun yung number one, yung recognizing organizational need. Number two, in the organizational buyer decision process is determining product specification. In the second process, it's about the specification, description, and quantity of the product that will be delivered to the buyer. No? So in the period kung kailan siya madi-deliver and what the other extra services that required for purchase of the goods and services. No, yun yung sabi dito kay determining product number 2. Yun yung explanation ko doon. So, that's the number 2 is determining product specification. So, let's move on number 3. So, the number 3 is identifying suppliers. Sabi dito, if there are many suppliers on the list, a screening procedure is needed that bases its decision on certain predefined criteria. The information gathered enables the organizational buyer to quickly look for suppliers that can meet minimum requirements. So dito, in the organizational buyer decision process, is identifying suppliers it is already been said here that if there's lot of suppliers, you can do a screening or interview to know what's the better and good quality of product or services. By screening, you can identify who have this all that so that yung funds mo hindi siya mapupunta sa wala. Failure to meet the minimum requirement usually means that the supplier will not be included in the list. No, hindi siya mapapasama sa list kasi nga hindi mo na-meet yung pinaka requirements niya. Kahit tumaas ka, kahit mataas ka sa ibang requirements mo, hindi mo naman na-meet yung minimum, hindi ka papapasama. No? So, yun yung identifying suppliers. That is identifying suppliers. So, move on to our number 4, which is information, search, and supplier evaluation. Sabi dito, a buying center may have to evaluate several products, types for particular use before suppliers can be selected. If products are complicated, technically trained people sort through alternatives to recommend those that meet previously developed product specification. So, ang sabi dito, in this process, it's about the buyer who evaluates the supplier's product before they choose a specific supplier, and if the product didn't meet a specific qualification, they will find another supplier that will meet their standards. So, sabi dito kanina, if products are complicated, technically trained people sort through other alternatives to recommend those that meet previously developed product specification. So sabi dito, yung mga nakaraan na product specification, pwede nila ulit kunin yon, yung mga supplier na yon, kasi nga yung ibang products are complicated. So pwede lang kunin yung mga nakaraan, no? Pwede nilang balikan yon. Yun yung kukunin nilang supplier ngayon. So yun yung number 4, which is information search and supplier evaluation. So that's number 4, which is information search and supplier evaluation. Number 5, which is negotiation of purchase order. So in this fifth process, when you say negotiation, of course there will be a contract that the both party needs to sign, no, for them to have an agreement. And the contents of the contract is usually the terms and condition about the product or services, and some other things that really matters when purchasing a good or services, like yung payment, delivery time, yung mode of payment, yung mga usually na nakalagay sa isang contract, no? And then yung safety ng goods, no? Or yung mga kung ano na pa, marami pang nakalagay dun guys. So siguro naman lahat tayo nakakita na ng contract, no, about purchasing of goods or services. So negotiation of purchase, no, for years, yun, no, yung about contracts ng kailangan isay ng both parties, the buyer and the sellers. So, let's move on again by number 6. So here's the last but not the least. So this is the 6 in our organizational buyer decision process, which is the evaluation of supplier performance. No? So in this process, the supplier will be evaluated by the buyer. Kung maganda ba yung pagkakahandle nila ng product or services nila, they will be evaluated from the start until the end of the transaction. Rejection, of course, there will be an criteria for that, no? And if the process of purchasing goes well from the start until the end, for sure, they will not hesitate to avail again your goods or services, no? Ito yung maganda rito, kapag nagawa mo na maayos yung services, no, na binibigay mo at products na binibenta mo, the buyer, no, will not hesitate to order again, no? So that's evaluation of supplier performance, no? So that's the last from organizational buyer decision process. So we're gonna move on to another topic. Here's the second topic of mine, which is influence on buying decision. Influences on buying decisions. So this is another topic of mine, no? But here we're gonna talk about the influences, no? Mga influences when you're buying product services, no? It states here that there are 4 major variables influencing business buyer decisions. So let's go to the number 1. Here's the first influences on buying decisions. So the first influence is environmental variables. So here government and other economic factors affect the buying decision, no? The buying behavior of an organization. So if the demand in the market fluctuates because of the government policy or other economic factor, that will be the huge impact to the marketers because they need to follow what's on the trend, no? So it's really hard to put up a business because of lot of things can change, no? Lot of things can happen sa isang market. Ang daming pwedeng magbago sa market. Pwede agad magbago yung kung anong trend ngayon, no? Ang hirap sumabay, especially pag yung market is ma-influensyahan siya ng napakaraming bagay. So that's what environmental variable is, no? Yung government policy, economic, state of economy, pwede siyang maka-apekto sa buying behavior ng isang organizational, no? Pwede na maepektuhan ng market. So yun yung number 1, which is environmental variable. So the number 2 is organizational variables, no? This is number 2 in organization buying decision. So here, this is where the culture of organization affects the buying decision, no? Kino-consider nila yung culture nila and environment nila pag bumibili sila ng product, no? They stick to their culture and the environment, so when they purchase a product or a service, they consider culture, no? So that's gave them a hard time to decide kasi nga kailangan nila consider yung culture nila kasi palagi na yun kasama kapag mag-a-avail sila ng isang goods or services, no? Hindi nila pwedeng pabayaan yun, so napakahirap nun para sa isang organizational, no, na kailangan palaging consider yung culture nila, environment nila kasi yun yung nakasanayan nila, no? Hindi na mawawala sa kanila yun. So organizational variables talk about the culture and environment of an organization. Number 3, which is interpersonal variables. So here in the third, influencing on buying decision, this is where the marketer needs to have a good strategy, no? The marketer really need to give his best when selling a product or a service because in a market there is a lot of good marketer who can persuade the prospect to buy their product. So for you to be recognized in a market with full of competitive marketer, you need to really have or gumawa ka ng isang magandang tactics and strategy. Kailangan magaling kang mga sales talk ng mga tao. So you can persuade them to buy your goods and services, no? You need to be confident so you can compete well in a market that full of competitive people, no? Kailangan maging magaling ka. Kailangan mas mauktak sa kanila. Hindi ka magpapatalo. So that's interpersonal variables. The last is individual variables. So in this topic, it's about the factors that affect buyers' decision when they buy a product, no? Sometimes they can be based on what's trend. What are the trends today? Sometimes they base it on their age, gender, or income. Because there are some factors that the buyers follow, no? They think hard of it. If the product or service that they will going to purchase or avail is worth of their money. They think of the quality, the price, and lot of other factors, no? Hindi mo naman kasi kailangan bumili kung hindi mo naman kailangan, no? Kailangan mo rin mag-save para sa sarili mo, hindi para sa mo for the future, right? No? So, bago ka bumili, isipin mo muna talaga kung kailangan mo, no? Kasi kung maayos pa naman, may maayos ka pa naman gamit, hindi mo pa naman kailangan, tabi mo na lang yung pera mo. No? A lot of things na pwede mong gamitin yun sa iba pang bagay, no? So that's the last of my report, which is individual variables. The last influences in buying decision. So yun guys, sana may natutunan kayo sa report namin. No? We hope you learned something from our report, from our presentation, no? And if you guys have noticed some errors, no, sana, kasi as far as I know, this will be uploaded on YouTube ata. I'm not sure, but our professor will gonna uploaded it, no. So pag may nakita kayong errors kasi sino makapanood, comment nyo na lang sa baba, no? Para makita din namin kasi kurigurado, panonoodin din namin to. So yun lang guys, thank you.